Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm filming my Shop My Stash for the new year, January 2021. So it's a new year and we need some new makeup to play with this month. Why don't we go ahead and get into it. Okay, we are starting out on top like always. If you like the way I do my Shop My Stash series, let me know. If there's anything you want to see different since we're starting a new year, maybe you have suggestions for how to shake these up and make it a little bit more interesting, be sure to let me know in the comments. But we're going to keep it the same for today. So over here we have items in my Roulette Pan Collab Project pan, or like things that I just am using one of, like an eyeliner. And then over here are items that we need to put back. And I also need to remember to pull out items that I just rolled into my Pandas eyeshadow project. I will link that. I'm so excited for that, so we definitely need to make sure that we have those eyeshadows out and ready to play with. But today you will see me pull a good amount of items, mostly because I have a couple ideas of things I want to roll into project pans, and before I introduce them or film those introductions, I want some time to play with some of those products last minute and make my mind up which ones are going into projects and which ones are not. So I have a lot to put back and we have a lot to pull out today. Okay, so my drawer is looking very full because I did just take photos for my inventory. So everything is kind of crammed in here and I have a lot of new items that are now a part of this collection. So if the drawer looks a little bit more full than normal, it is. Now to help my mind just be a little bit more clear as I pull things, I do want to do them in the order that I would put on my makeup. So primers, I do have two to put back this month. I have the Backlight Priming Filter and the Hydro Touch Primer from NYX. These two items will go back, and I do want to pull out quite a bit to play with because I have a lot of new product that I haven't really got to test out yet. So let me pull out my new items. This Bobbi Brown primer, I'm so tongue-tied today. This one's coming out, as well as this Lumi primer here from L'Oreal. I also want to pull out this Jelly Pop primer from e.l.f. and the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer. I've used both of those just a couple times, but I want a chance to play with them a little bit more before I start panning later in this month. Somewhere about halfway through January, I'll probably film my 2021 project pan, but right now I'm just going to use this little bit of time to play a little bit more with some makeup. So like I said, these two items can go back in storage and I'll move on. Okay, for foundations, I do have one that I'm currently working on, trying to finish this up in the Roulette Pan Collab Project pan. So far, this is looking like the only one that I need to use if I want to finish this up, so I'm going to leave this one out and not pull any primers, or foundations I mean, but I will put this one back. This is the Tarte Hybrid Gel Foundation. I didn't end up completing this in my last year project pan, my 2020 project pan, so I will just leave it in the container for now and just try to focus my efforts on the other one. Okay, for concealers, I was actually using these two concealers, the LA Girl like color corrector and a Naked Skin concealer from Urban Decay. Now this white concealer from ColourPop, I used this as an eyeshadow base, but I realized that this color corrector is a little dark, so I tried mixing them. That worked much better, but for now I think I will put all these back. And I'm actually going to pull these four out. These two are like color correctors, or this one's actually just concealer, but I use it as like a hydrating kind of color corrector. And then these two are items that I want to decide if I'm going to try to pan these this year or if I'm going to try to pan some other things that I already have my eye on. So these four will come out. For powders last month, I was working on these two, and I actually think I will leave my Stay Matte powder out. I've really been enjoying this one, and I'm kind of thinking about rolling this one into a project this year, so I'm going to leave it out. I will put back the Milani Prep Set and Glow for right now, and then I wanted to pull out this guy here. This is a Mally Beauty Poreless Face Defender. I have always stored this in my powder section because I used it like a blotting kind of thing, but I actually want to give it a try as a primer potentially and as a setting powder. I know I think it was Jen Phelps talked about using this as a setting powder once in a while instead of using actual powder. So I wanted to give that a little bit of a try this month, so I will leave this out too. For bronzer last month, I ended up using this newly hauled bronzer that I got in December from Isadora. This is a Swedish kind of drugstore brand, I would say, although it's still super high in price. Like this little bronzer costs like over $20, I want to say. And hopefully you can see, I actually did get a good bit of use out of this last month. So I think what I'm going to do is roll this out, and I have two more that I want to pull in this month. This first one is from a little palette that I recently picked up. I haven't really used it that often. I used it just a couple times since I purchased it, but I want to get a feel for it a little bit better before I start panning one for the year. And I was going to go ahead and pull out the things that I was going to pan, or that I was going to roll into those upcoming project pans, but I think I'll keep you on pins and needles and just wait and pull those in when I film the intros. For highlight last month, I was using my Natasha Denona Diamond and Blush palette, and I also pulled this Flexitarian highlight out. I will put this back because I'm still having a lot of fun with the Diamond and Blush palette, and I find that I'm not reaching for this as much. But I did want to roll in a couple items. This here is a Becca highlight that I recently picked up. This is the shade Moonstone, and I haven't worn it on my cheeks yet, so I'm really excited to try this out. And then another palette that I always really enjoy in the wintertime, just as like a fun, playful pop of color when I'm wearing a more neutral look. This is the Aurora Glow Kit from Anastasia Beverly Hills, and I definitely want to play with this some this month. Okay, the last thing that we need to pull out from this drawer is blush. Now there is a blush in this shade, or in this like illuminating kind of blush here in this palette that I just recently got. And I also have a pinky toned blush in my Natasha Denona palette, but I did want to pull out one more blush that I just recently hauled. This is my new Becca Wild Honey blush. I've always heard about this, like this particular shade and this formula being really good, so I wanted to try it out, and it was on a really good sale here in Sweden, so I picked this up. I've only swatched it, so I'm really excited to try this out. I actually really love these kind of like bronzy shades in winter. That's like typically when I pull for them most often. It's quite warm, so I'm curious to see whether it will work for me in the wintertime, but I'm definitely excited to try that out. And I think that's it for this first drawer. Okay, for this second drawer, we are putting back a good number of ColourPop shadows. I ended up only using a handful of these, so I think what I need to do is make sure that I don't overpull next time, because I definitely felt a little overwhelmed working on so many of them last month. But for now, I will just put all of these back. I'll have to straighten those up later, but I did want to pull out one Stila glitter to play with this month. Now, if only I could stop knocking things over, but I think I want to pull out the shade Enchantress. It's a really good, like, pinky kind of cream shade. I guess it's more of like a pinky champagne kind of shade. Hopefully you can see that's the world's most awful swatch there. I will pull this out this month. The other ones I have here are beautiful, but I think I will hold off on using them until another month. I definitely don't want to pull more than one glitter a month at this point. I worked on these a lot during 2020, and I got a lot of good use out of them, but I'm not trying to pan them this year, if that makes sense. Okay, I did want to pull out a couple lip liners. I think I'm going to pull this one here in Natural Beige. This is a brand that I found on Amazon called Italia, just a lip liner pack, and it's really not bad quality, so I'm going to try to get some use out of this one this month. As well as this shade here called Dusty Rose. It's a really nice kind of more pinky toned shade. I definitely want to try to use that some this month. I also would like to get some use out of this green eyeliner here. I recently had this in a project pan and really enjoyed this particular color at this point in the year, so I definitely want to pull this one out here. And this particular shade is called Tropical Green from NYX. I normally do not pull brow products, but I did want to pull just a couple of them to kind of get an idea of if I want to try to pan any of these in this coming year. So I have just a clear brow setter from Benefit, and then this e.l.f. Wow Brow in the shade Brunette. And I have only tried this one a handful of times, and I've really not used this much at all. So I want to get an idea of maybe I could finish one of these this year. We'll see. But then again, I also have some other brow products that I might choose to pan over these. But either way, I would like to play with these this month. A couple more items to pull out this month. I did want to pull out this NYX glitter primer because I am wearing my Sigma Enchanted palette, and the shimmers in that palette definitely work best over glitter glue. So I'm going to use this, and then I also am trying to get some use out of this. I actually am just trying also to decide if I want to try to pan this year. But I think that's plenty from this drawer, so we'll go ahead and move on to the last drawer. Okay, this last drawer we have quite a bit to put back and to pull out. In December, I had pulled out 5 items. These 3 will go back this month. I will go ahead and show them to you. This first one here is the Marc Jacobs Electric palette, and it has these beautiful like sparkly shimmers and this high intense like metallic silver. I loved wearing that this month, so this one can go back for a little while though, and I think I might pull this out again in February for like these pinks and this like kind of purple shade. I think I will pull this back out, like I said, in February. This palette here is the Night and Day palette from Revolution Pro, and I did end up using this a good bit as well last month. Really enjoyed playing with this, although it is a little bit more work to get these shadows to show up like I want them to. Still a beautiful color story though. I also really enjoyed working on my Sultry palette last month. It's just a beautiful, again, sparkly kind of palette that is really good for like these colder months when you want shades that are a little bit more neutral to cool tone. So I will put this one back. Now these other 2 here are the Sigma Enchanted palette I actually got last month. It came in the mail. I picked it up from Beauty Bay on Black Friday, and I ended up using it a good bit in December, but I recently rolled this into my first ever project pan where I'm working on eyeshadow, and this actually rolled into my intro for the Pan Those Eyeshadows project, so I'm going to keep this out. Also, can you guess which shade I'm working on for this palette? And then the Truly Madly Deeply palette was another one that rolled into that project pan, and so I'm gonna keep it out as well. Now this one's definitely harder to see which shade I rolled in. Okay, let me pull out the rest of those palettes that are going into that project pan. This is the Modern Renaissance. One of the shades in here has been rolled in. And then also the Dose of Colors Francation palette has a shade that has been rolled into it. I wonder if you could guess which one it is if you haven't seen that video already, but really excited to work on this one this month. And then the last palette rolling into that project was from this palette here, the Lorac Pro 3. And I'm working on one of the shades out here. I'm not going to say which shade because you got to go see that video if you haven't already, but I will pull this one out as well. Now, since I am working on 5 palettes, I realize that's going to take a ton of dedication. I'm only going to pull 1 palette to have fun with, like when I'm not wearing this. My plan is to try to wear this like 5 times a week, and then maybe on the weekends I will wear the other palette for fun. So again, just 1 palette to kind of play with. And I think the one that I want to play with is this new one that I just literally got. I have only swatched it. I have not even worn it on my eyes yet. This is the Sol Måne palette from Odin's Eye. It's a Swedish brand, and I just got this in the mail recently, so I want to put this into my Shop My Stash and get some good use out of it. Although I'm also really tempted to play with this one here from Natasha Denona. This is the Lila palette, but I think what I might do is wait and save this for a different month because it is a beautiful like pinky purple tone palette, and I have been craving some. Okay, you know what? I decided I'm gonna pull both of these for right now. I'm gonna definitely overwhelm myself and I may regret this, but I'm gonna pull 2 to have fun with just occasionally, and then I'm gonna make sure I give my Panthers eyeshadows plenty of attention. Now, honestly, I forgot to think about which lipsticks that I want, and I'm way too overwhelmed right now to think about like which ones I know I want, so I'll pull lipsticks as I need them, but I think for now we're done. Okay, we are back up top. This is everything that I have pulled to use in this new year, 2021, in the month of January. Make sure, again, let me know in the comments if you have any suggestions for these videos. I want to make sure these don't get boring or redundant, so if you have any suggestions or if you like things just the way they are, be sure to let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.